Hi and welcome, and thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name is Lily and today we are going to be talking about God-Shaped Hole by Tiffanie DeBartolo. It's a contemporary romance and it all begins with the dark prediction of a fortune teller. I begin with the bullet points. God-Shaped Hole by Tiffanie DeBartolo is a contemporary romance novel for readers 18+. The book was first published in 2002 and re-released in 2017 by Sourcebooks Landmark. It has 416 pages and the reading time is 5 to 6 hours. A similar book is Heartbones by Colleen Hoover, which I presented in the previous video, so you can check this one out too if you like. That's to the bullet points. Let's move on to the author. Tiffanie DeBartolo was born November 27th, 1970 in Youngstown, Ohio, where she says there was nothing to do but read and listen to music. She then studied philosophy at UC Berkeley, consequently becoming a writer and founding a record label. DeBartolo has written 3 novels. Her first one was God-Shaped Hole, what a debut, in 2002, followed by How to Kill a Rock Star in 2005 and Sorrow, her most recent work. In 2010 she also wrote a short story called Squirrel Pancake. It's a story about a boy and a squirrel, and she also wrote the text to the graphic novel Grace, the Jeff Buckley story, which was published in 2019. But DeBartolo is not only a writer, she's also a filmmaker. She wrote and directed Dream for an Insomniac, which came out in 1996 and starred Ione Skye and Jennifer Aniston. So we have books, movies, and now we're adding music because DeBartolo is the founder and CEO of the San Francisco Bay Area record label Bright Antenna, whose artist roster includes The Wombats, Wildorado, Sports Team, Prep. She's a jack of all trade, and that's because she's also a co-founder of the Shinemaker Foundation. It's a charity that supports human rights, women's rights, education, animal welfare, environment. And she is also a faculty member of the Jackson Hole Writers Conference, where she teaches writing every June. She now lives in Mill Valley together with her husband Scott Shoemaker and 2 Irish wolfhounds. In her spare time she enjoys traveling, running, hiking and cooking. Yeah, that to Tiffanie DeBartolo. What a woman. Now let's go to the summary of God-Shaped Hole. It all begins when a fortune teller predicts to 12-year-old Beatrice Jordan that she will find true love, her soulmate, but will tragically lose him again. Beatrice, or Trixie, lives up with her mother in 1980s Hollywood after her parents' divorce. She has no longer any contact with her father, a workaholic lawyer in the film industry, and her relationship with her mother is problematic too, because in Trixie's eyes she is very superficial and primarily focused on status and money and always finds something to nag at her. So at 27, Beatrice is the typical cynical child of the rich from LA, and apart from a few friends with benefits meetings with her neighbor, the single jewelry designer feels quite lonely and misunderstood. Following an impulse, she answers a newspaper's ad that reads, "If your intentions are pure, I'm seeking a friend for the end of the world." The ad was posted by 2 years older Jacob Grace. He is a freelance writer. And from the first meeting, both realize that they found someone very special because their conversations are uncomplicated and full of curiosity and understanding for the other. They have a lot of similarities. Jacob is also out of touch with his father, alcoholic writer who has abandoned the family when Jacob was still very young. Both of them love music and find it a cosmic language, and agreeing that people are on a quest to fill the titular hole in their souls. And Jacob is so completely different from all the boys Beatrice has met so far. He is interested in music and poetry and spontaneously goes swimming with her at midnight in the freezing Pacific Ocean. And soon a deep and sensual, but at the same time turbulent and very passionate love develops between the free spirits who are drawn together and full of dreams. Only one thing, it's Trixie's jealousy of Jacob's ex-girlfriend and her anger at his solo efforts, but also the broken relationship of both to their fathers that clouds the togetherness. Yeah, that's everything I want to tell you about the story. That's why we move on to my impression. At the beginning of the story, Tiffanie DeBartolo explains what inspired her to write the book, and I love that when an author does that, because it's always so interesting to know the inspiration behind the story, namely how on a flight back home she heard the song Grace by Jeff Buckley, and the music touched her deeply inside and moved her so much that it became a muse to this book, which she wrote while Grace was playing on a continuous loop. And I think the name of the protagonist, Jacob Grace, is probably no accident. The story is told honestly, as if a friend were telling it to you, and I found the introduction with the prediction extremely exciting, and the more I read, the more I hoped that the fortune teller would be hugely mistaken. I mean, who believes in predictions anyway? The build-up and the rather quiet pace of the story felt just right to me. The uncertainty at the beginning hung over the whole story like a sword of Damocles, and although I knew what to expect, I wasn't prepared for the ending. The partly cheerful and even funny tone got something heavy, like something lurking in the dark. And I like how Tiffanie DeBartolo manages to describe a person in just a few words. From this insanely poetic ad, I got a good impression of what kind of person Jacob Grace is, and I think it's impressive how just a few lines can say so much about someone. DeBartolo's language is very flowery and sensual, with a lot of beautiful metaphors, which I personally like very much. She skillfully describes the search for oneself and the meaning of life, and the insecurities and the turmoil in the process. I experienced this love story, or it's more a love drama, as very real, as exactly how it could be. And the cohabitation and the breathtaking love between the two are not romanticized, but you go along with the characters. You feel their love, their passion, their pain and their anger being abandoned. And this view of two people being abandoned at first and then finding each other is very poetically described without seeming cheesy or contrived. On the contrary, I think the living together and the relationships with parents, siblings, suitors, and especially the relationship with each other are described very genuinely. Raw and unadorned, the souls of the two were exposed with all the rough edges. I quickly empathized with these characters, understood them, and grew to love these two dreamers. And although I actually knew from the beginning how everything could or would turn out, thanks to the divination, I found this story anything but predictable or boring. Of course, this ending broke my heart, and I fervently hope that the fortune teller might have been wrong and that Trixie would still manage to save Jacob. But just when you think everything is perfect and you're making plans for the future, that's how it is in life, that's when usually everything turns out differently. It's a story about true love, the one that makes you new, and has the capacity to break you, but it's also a story of strength, of finding yourself and moving on despite all the adversities of life. I enjoyed that while reading. I was catapulted back into the 80s and 90s, a kind of back to the future, and I listened to music from that time again. But I think younger readers probably won't understand the pop culture references from the 80s. You also get a tiny little glimpse behind the facade of Hollywood and a big one into the LA world in which Trixie lives in. Some things I found a bit unbelievable though, like Jacob's unannounced trips without a word. Sure, he's spontaneous and the story takes place before smartphones existed, but phone booths existed. There's just something very selfish about these trips, ego trips even, and I just don't think it fits this empathetic character of Jacob to go away for days without checking in with Trixie in between, especially when it seems he understands her so well and he should know that that bothers her and worries her. And also the meeting between Jacob and his father I found somewhat strange and fleetingly told. It was a bit like they traveled for days for a meeting that lasted what felt like half an hour. And I also found Jacob's character to be portrayed overly dramatic at times, a dreamer with a penchant for tragedy, even a bit cliché, the poor author who can't taste the fruits of his success. But I don't want to nag because the story is great. So that's to my impression. Let's go to the conclusion. This book is told straightforward and you know from the beginning what you're going to get. So if you're expecting a big twist or a surprise, this is not a book for you. If you're expecting a happy ending, this is not a book for you either. It's a book for readers who like realistic, contemporary, new adult books with a beautiful language and a story that hits you right here in the middle. It's a story about love worth having even if it's short-lived. God-Shaped Hole is an appeal to live life to the fullest, be inspired and to make each day as vibrant as possible and to love. It is sensual, passionate and captivating, and I mourned not only with the main character but also when the story had ended. This was my first book by Tiffanie DeBartolo and I was really surprised. I enjoyed it very much and will definitely read more by this fantastic author. Do you believe in predictions? Let me know in the comment section down below. I'm really curious what you think. So here we are again. Thank you so much for watching and sticking with me to the end. I really appreciate it. I wish you all the best and hope to see you soon. Bye.